Pierre, brother. How's your connection, bro?
How are you?
How are you doing, Habibi? How's the connection? It's you're frozen. It's lagging.
Not good, is it not? Is it being poor?
Yeah, it looks like it's me.
Can you hear me?
I mean, it's fine.
Good. How are you?
No, I'm saying. I think this is late.
Okay. If that's the case, you're fine. You're good. It might be. It's probably me.
Okay. Okay.
I can switch my connection if it remains a problem.
I don't know if you want to use a hotspot or what.
Is it bad?
Yeah, it's really bad.
I want to see. Let me try. Let me do that.
Excuse us, guys, for the technical difficulties, which is very common among our people.
Hello.
Hey, buddy.
Better?
A lot better. Yeah, a lot better.
A lot better? Okay. We switched to a hotspot. Let me share the thing again. Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. It's good to be back. Our final part of the Assyrian Church of the East, Chaldean Catholic, and Ancient Church of the East series on the history of these institutions in the modern era. As I've prefaced before in the previous two parts, this part will deal more with some hearsay, also open to interpretation. I will do my best to present it to the best of my abilities with as unbiased a perspective as possible, though I'm a human being. I have biases. I live through some of these experiences, so these are certainly that are close, near, and dear to my heart. Unlike other ones where we haven't been able to see their effects, or we've been able to see their effects historically, a lot of this still remains to be seen. It's ongoing. There's certain things that, out of respect, always be said. Will be a very hopefully interesting episode. So, yeah, let's go.
It's exciting.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just trying to find where. Okay, so first off, let's at the beginning. Pretty important picture. It speaks to a much degree of the Chaldean Catholic and the Syrian Church of the East. Let's introduce some of these figures at the beginning. At the top left, you have Mar Rafael Bidawid. We'll talk about him a little bit more. On the right, we have a character that should be familiar from the last episode, the IV, His Holiness. In the middle, you have Father Sarhad Jamo. We'll talk about him, right. You have Bishop Ibrahim Ibrahim. He is the bishop of the, now he's the former bishop of the Eastern Diocese of the Chaldean Catholic Diocese. And the bottom left, you have Mar Bawai Soro. Out of the 5 people in these pictures, bottom, Mar Bawai Soro and Ibrahim Ibrahim. So may the others rest in peace. Okay, we're going to start with introducing who is Soro. This is very important to understand if you're going to understand anything about the Assyrian Church of the East, the Chaldean Catholic Church over the past 30 years. Mar Bawai Soro was born as Asho Soro in 1954 to a Kochesnaya family. So it's from a village called Kopchanis. Traditionally, the Patriarchate was headquartered there. He was born in Kirkuk, Iraq. He testifies that early on in his life, he had a relationship with the Chaldean Catholic community. He went to a Catholic school, as many of the Christian schools in Iraq were run by Catholics. In 1974, he moved to America, so he was 20, quite young. One of the first things he did with encouragement from the church was go to a community college in Chicago so he could improve his English. He was ordained to the priesthood in 1982, so again, quite young to be a priest, and he was elevated to the bishopric in 1984. So he was 30 years old when he became a bishop, one of the youngest people in the Church of the East to have this position during this time period, and a rising star, by all accounts, in the church during this time. When he was ordained, so was Mar Meelis Zeya. Mar Meelis is Timar Naya. They were both ordained within a week apart of each other. He was appointed Bishop of the Western United States, so that was the bishopric at the time it was called. It included churches in Modesto, Turlock, in the southwestern part of America. In 1984, something that made Mar Bawai quite famous was he attended, again, fresh off being ordained, attended a meeting between Mardancha and His Holiness John Paul II in Rome. This goes to be something very important in Mar Bawai's career, but it also goes to show how Mar Bawai was regarded by Mardancha. This is a freshly ordained bishop, and you choose him to attend this meeting with you. In 1987, he is given a scholarship to attend at Catholic University of America, where he did an accelerated program where he received a bachelor's degree and a master's. Later on, he studies in Rome from 1996 to 2000 to receive a doctorate. So he is Dr. Mar Bawai Soro. In 1990, he is appointed to the Committee for Ecumenical Dialogue with the Catholic Church, and he becomes acquainted with Sarhad Jamo during this period, or at least quite close with him. Sarhad is also an appointee from the Chaldean Catholic Church to work on this committee. Just to say, some people say that him and Mar Sarhad knew each other from their time in Iraq. You can't find anything to substantiate that specifically, but it's something that might be interesting to know. Who is Mar Meelis Zeya? Mar Meelis is born in 1956 in Baghdad. He is ordained to the diaconate by Mar Yusuf Khananishu, and later on to the priesthood in 1982 in America. He's elevated to bishop a week after Bawai Soro in 1984. He's made the bishop of Australia and New Zealand. He is to be their first bishop. One of his first actions was to organize the Assyrian Church of the East in Australia. So in 1968, we went over the Ancient Church of the East controversy. There were people in Australia, obviously, that were pro-Ancient Church of the East. St. Mary's Church in Sydney was possessed by the old calendarists and the new calendarists. There was a sort of a understanding between the two. But we would say that most of the Sita of the church was old calendarist. So Mar Meelis decided that because this property was legally owned by the Assyrian Church of the East, and he wanted to reorganize the Assyrian Church of the East according to a different law so that it would receive different tax benefits and whatnot prior to then how it was really organized, he needed to wrest control of this parish as well. So in 1987, he began his attempt to take it over. Basically, you see two big camps form, those that are pro-Mar Meelis and those who are anti-Mar Meelis. The ones who are anti-Mar Meelis side with the Ancient Church of the East, even if they were not Ancient Church of the East to begin with. This becomes simply almost a political issue within Australia, within the community. To go even further with this being said, even if the St. Mary's Church was controlled by the Ancient Church of the East, the Assyrian Church of the East prior to that had not attempted to wrest control from them. out of a belief that eventually these churches would reunite. So what would be the point of a prolonged legal battle or any sort of what might we say, conflict with them? So they decided not to do that. Mar Meelis, at the time, when these two factions formed, started labeling the faction against them as communists, as political activists, as malcontents, thieves. He even labels them as thieves, saying that they're stealing money from the church. The court rules in 1989, after a 2-year legal battle, that the property is owned by the ACOE, and that under the new corporate structure of the ACOE in Australia, that must be taken over. The police actually have to come. There's huge riots outside the courtroom. It's actually such a big deal. It gets covered on 60 Minutes Australia, which inflames tensions. There were numerous people arrested from the anti-Mar Meelis faction. And in fact, they bring most of the Mar Meelis faction into the room in 60 Minutes. Well, not most of them, but those that are more loud and outspoken that can fit in the studio. They bring them into the same room, along with the host of 60 Minutes Australia at this time. But Mar Meelis notably does not attend. So Mar Meelis has some choice words that he chooses to use for his detractors. Like I said, he's labeling them communists, political activists, malcontents, thieves. But he says more on national television in Australia. So that'll be the next slide. We'll have to watch this video.
Listen to it.
With their primitive thinking, they think that this is a way of getting a sympathy of the people. And number two, again, with a very primitive thinking, probably they think that they can affect the law.
They are primitive people, are they?
Yes, I think so.
Do you mind being called primitive?
What primitive means?
What, primitive?
Yeah, well,
Primitive is like apes in the trees.
In the tree.
No,
if he was a man of God, he wouldn't call us people. He wouldn't call us people. Okay, he wouldn't call us people that word.
So your bishop himself is not here to put his arguments to you directly, but I did ask him to come, and here's what he had to say. Why won't you face them and have an argument with them face to face?
I did in the Supreme Court.
Yeah, but you won't tonight. They say you're a coward.
Well, I thank them very much, but I am not coward. I am civilized.
Well, then have a civilized argument. Fight with words, not
They
with
do
fists.
not understand that language. I am not ready to sit with a person who speaks of violence and terrorism and bloodshed. I am not ready to do so.
Violence, terrorism.
So let's just think about what was said there. There's a lot to unpack just in these short couple clips that I put together. He calls these people primitive. And when the host, who certainly had his own prejudices, if you watch the video, the host says, they're primitive people, are they? He said, yes, I would say so. He's talking about his own people here, obviously. The man is very quick to pry it out in the crowd. He said, what is primitive? You know, he's obviously an immigrant. English is not a strong language for him. He said, what does this word mean? The host compares the people to apes. He says that this is primitive, means ape-like. And he says, well, if he was a man of God, you would not call your own people this, he says. So notice, even if this person is an ancient Church of the East adherent, he's referring to themselves, same people, the same congregation. You know, why would you call your own people this? You know, later on, he goes to say, well, you know, you can't, you know, this is like, you can't face these people. The host asks him, and he says, no, I don't face with people who advocate bloodshed and violence. And, you know, he essentially is saying that these are violent people. And that he's civilized. He said, no, I am civilized. These people are not. So again, look at the distinction he makes. And this is on national television in Australia. Again, quite disgusting words to say towards your own people as a member of the clergy, in my opinion. Why you would say this, why you would label it your people like this. You can even see when he says, no, I tried to talk it out with them, the whole crowd gets an uproar because they don't believe there was any sort of discussion on the table to begin with about this issue. The clip exists online. You can watch it anywhere. Anybody can watch it. You can see Mar Meelis has gone on the record and talked about this in transcripts in the radio in Australia. I've read his transcript. He he uses the names, he calls them communists, all these kinds of things. He implies that there's some sort of bad motive from these people, which I think is frankly silly. I think it's also silly to call these people primitive. Shamash, any thoughts on primitive?
I think it's telling of he's metropolitan, yeah?
Not at this time, but now, yes.
Okay. It's telling of his eminence's character that he is willing to go out and say this publicly while a bishop, and without any worry, he's so relaxed in saying it, without any worry of any kind of ecclesiastical backlash, whether from His Holiness Mardencha or from the Synod. Like he has, he's not scared at all.
Yeah, and we'll say that this relationship between the ancient Church of the East and Australia and Mar Meelis persists on to today, definitely because of this incident. And I think it's quite crazy to go and say this to Nachraye, to other people. You say this about your people. The host is also very anti Assyrian, to say the least. If you watch the full video, but I won't get into the host's feelings. That's not really my job here. Let's talk about Catholic-ecumenical dialogue in the Assyrian Church of the East. So at the time, Mardencha had this very open policy. He wanted to see where he could gain friends and support from the church. We have to understand that the ACOE was very isolated, especially, obviously with the global decline of Britain. With the global decline of Britain, so the Anglican Church no longer has the power that it once did. Obviously, the Anglican Church has its own problems within it. I'm not here to discuss that, obviously, but numerous issues within the Anglican Church. So the ACOE is a bit isolated. There starts to be overtures towards Rome. Mar Isha Shimon might have began this relationship with some letters, some cordial relationships that existed in diaspora between Catholics and the ACOE, but it starts to get obviously much better during Mardencha's time. Let's understand that there are also political considerations going on the outside that are causing discussions to unify. So if we look at what's going on in the world at this time, the U.S. has invaded Iraq in 1991. U.S. relations with Iraq are beginning to deteriorate in the late 1980s. So there's this whole idea that perhaps we can once again get something for ourselves as a people. Once again, we can have something. But the easiest way to do this would be through unity of our church institutions. We have to understand that Assyrian political parties or Chaldean Catholic political parties didn't really exist in diaspora at this time. The AUA is quite strong at this point, but ZOA is just beginning in 1979. They're starting to get more support in the 80s. So there's this whole outside perspective. The people are really pushing for unity. There's loud voices for unity. And this exists within the church. And in 1989, Mar Rafael Bidawid is elected to be the Chaldean Catholic Patriarch upon the passing of Mar Polis Shecho. He wins in 23 rounds of voting against the Archbishop of Kashgar, which is his seat was really, he was the auxiliary bishop in Baghdad, Amanu Delhi. Let's go on and talk about this really interestingly enough. How do I know it's 23 rounds of voting? I'm sure people are saying, that's really specific. Patriarch Mar Luis Rafael Sacco has recently decided, God knows why, to release the exact voting and what went on and the political considerations. It was actually quite a long battle between Rafael Bidawid and Amanu Delhi in 1989 over who would be the patriarch. Bidawid was obviously able to win eventually through this process, but only after making some political concessions to Amanu Delhi about his role within the church. Again, really, 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 really weird that the Chaldean Catholic Patriarch has released this. Personally, I believe this is undermining confidence in the system. When you decide to show the inner workings of the Synod and their electoral process, whoever is the Patriarch gets elected by the grace of God and by guiding the bishops, not over political concerns, but Mar Luis Rafael Sacco, again, has chosen to release that in the past week. So looking into it, obviously, it's important to understand why Mar Rafael Bidawid was elected. He was bishop in Lebanon. Let me speak to some of his work in bishop during Lebanon. in Lebanon. There was the war in Lebanon during his time as bishop. He was actually very, very, very well known for his work in helping Suraya at the time and for trying to safeguard his community. His cathedral was actually destroyed during the war. They had to build a new one. It's a beautiful building. I recommend everyone look it up. Shamash Daniel, I sent you the video of the tour of that building. A lot of symbolism, a lot of symbolism. Maraf al-Bidawid is actually interred in that building. That's where he's buried. He was deeply, deeply connected to his community in Lebanon, and he is missed very much and honored very highly by the people of the Suraya of Lebanon. Let's understand that Father Sarhad Jammo is a rising star in the Chaldean Catholic Church as a priest. He's making a name for himself in Michigan. He is very loud, outspoken, and a big proponent of unity. He is someone that believes in the tradition of the Chaldean Catholic Church. His father is actually was a historian who wrote a history of Talkep in Arabic and the surrounding villages of Nineveh. He has some interesting statements to say about ethnicity, his father, personally.
Father, do you have them?
The statements, I didn't put it in here.
Okay.
It's beyond the scope of this video, but we'll say that his father believes that the inhabitants of Talkep are the inhabitants of Nineveh, or Nineveh, as he puts in Arabic, which we'll see that...
Does that have an ethnic title implication?
Of course it does. Who are the people of Nineveh? The Assyrians.
Got it.
So Mar Sarhad in himself has grown in a very traditional, history-loving environment, and indeed he himself pushes for unity. In 1994, basically the work started in 1984, and as I mentioned, there is a committee that is started in 1990. In 1994, we reach our first big landmark between the Assyrian Church of the East and the Catholic Church, a common Christological declaration. It's public information online. You can look up the Common Christological Declaration. Quite an interesting document, but very important as it establishes a good relationship between the Assyrian Church of the East and the Catholic Church, who can now say we share a common Diophysite Christology. Anyone who attempts to label the Assyrian Church of the East Nestorian would actually have to label the Catholic Church Nestorian just because of this agreement. If you say they share the same Christology, that would be saying that also the Roman Catholic Church would have to be Nestorian by extension. But I think the argument would be that neither are believing in two people. And that's something that obviously with the work of Sarhad Jammo and others in the Chaldean Catholic Church was able to be a realization. So what else do we get signed in this period? I believe in 2001, you get guidelines for the admission of the Eucharist between the Chaldean Catholic Church and the Assyrian Church of the East. This basically allows members of the Chaldean Catholic Church in times of need to take the Eucharist at the Assyrian Church of the East, and in the Assyrian Church of the East, if you need to take communion and you cannot for some reason, you can go to the Chaldean Catholic Church. It's essentially for necessity, but such a term for necessity is quite vague. We can actually call this a common pastoral agreement in a way where basically because they both share people in mixed families and all this, it just makes it a lot easier in terms of ecclesiology and how this would work. So signing this agreement is a huge landmark between the two, and it's actually showing process towards unity. Also, there is a mixed committee for theological dialogue formed between the Catholic Church and the Assyrian Church of the East during this time period. So that's now just mostly it's to go even further and to see what are the prospects for unity. So now we're going to go into another really important thing, the 1995 unity in India, as we'll call it. So the church in India, as we left off in the last episode, is basically ruled by the ancient Church of the East with a small Assyrian Church of the East faction. But years of legal cases and government taxes in Kerala have left it quite in rough shape. In 1990, in Baghdad, Mar Apramukin pushes Mar Adde for unity, and he actually asked for financial support, which the church was unable to provide. And he says that he will pursue it otherwise. Mar Adde essentially says, I leave you to your own devices. In 1991, Mardan Kha visits India with Mar Timotheos, who is the pro-ACOE bishop in India that was appointed in, I believe, 1970, if not 71. They meet with Mar Apramukin, who's the metropolitan of the ancient Church of the East in India, and Mar Polis, the bishop of one of the ancient Church of the East bishops in India. So you can see at the very top with this picture over here, you can see that you have Mar Dinkha in the middle. This is from their visit in 1990. Mar Meelis accompanies him. You can see right here, you have Mar Timotheos. He's the ACOE Bishop of India. You have Mar Apramukin here, dressed with a very orange garb for a bishop. I personally think it's very interesting, and he's worn it on several other occasions. I personally like it. And then over here, you have Mar Polis on the right. They're having a good meeting. We can say that definitely some good results came of this meeting, as in 1994, Mar Dinkha goes to has a synod in Chicago where he receives further permission from the synod to engage in negotiations with the ancient Church of the East faction in India. In late 1995, he sends his trusty deputy, Mar Narse Debaz, the metropolitan, and Mar Meelis who attended the first meeting. He sends them to India to reach terms for unity. Now, just to mention, when they met in 1991, there was a couple discussions, and something that Mar Dinkha was unable to promise in 1991 was the recognition of ordinations of Mar Thoma Dharmo. He said, I cannot commit to recognizing these. Obviously it was done under interesting circumstances, as I brought up in the next episode. So anyways, late 1995, let's just say his deputies who came for negotiation, they were able to agree to that. So Mar Thoma Dharmo's ordinations are recognized, and terms are reached for unity. So as you can see, a very nice picture over here. They're holding hands, they're cheering, they're proud. We have reached unity. Mar Narse Debaz is right here. Mar Timotheos, I believe that's Mar Timotheos. Mar Apramukin on the right of him. Mar Meelis all the way at the end, and Mar Polis is wearing the orange this time. So it's a very beautiful photo, but it speaks to unity was achieved in India in 1995. So now the Assyrian Church of the East is the sole quote-unquote Nestorian Church of the East Syriac Rite. There's no longer the ancient Church of the East in India after 1995. Mar Apramukin goes on to be recognized as a metropolitan. So Mar Timotheos, his role is also accepted. Mar Polis is allowed to enter. There's an interim episcopal council that is formed in India, which basically is to oversee the transition between the two. Let's move on to the next one. So we have changing perceptions of nationalism. So we have to understand that during this time, you see a push for unity in the Chaldean Catholic Church. There are people that are, there's a lot going on in the comments right now.
Yeah, so this guy...
Should I pause and address it?
Yes, please.
Okay, so let's think, Philip. You said, aren't you Iraqi? Well, what is Iraqi, Philip, besides just a fake country created in 1920 by the British? So actually really making these distinctions between Iraqi, Iranian, Turkish, Syrian, these are all artificial borders, right? So we're all from Bet Nahrin. So if you want to make differentiations, you can make it on region, but making it on the basis of these borders that don't really apply to us in any sort of sense doesn't make sense. What else did he say? Masihi in Arabic goes for the language as well. Yeah, that's an error. You cannot speak Christian. That's not the language. Jesus spoke Aramaic, correct, but does he speak the same variety of Aramaic that we speak, the Mesopotamian variety of Aramaic? No, he doesn't. Is our language even the same as what people speak in Malula? Absolutely not. It's not the same. So, yeah, most people who go under Assyrian now worship Ashur, sadly. Philip, do you think anybody in the Assyrian Church of the East worships Ashur? No, that's actually really silly and almost idiotic to say. Frankly, actually very idiotic to say. I am someone who identifies as Assyrian. Do I worship Ashur? No. And I know you said mostly, but that's just to cover your ass. I don't even think 2% of people who identify as Assyrian are Asher worshippers. Let's even say this: not even half of 8%. So let's think about that. There are people who identify as Assyrian in the Chaldean Catholic Church, as I'll display in this next clip. Maraf al-Bidawid identified as Assyrian. That's public information. You can look it up. He said it on 2 different occasions that he is an Assyrian. So what does that tell you, Philip? What does that tell you? Do you think Maraf al-Bidawid worshipped Ashur? No, he was the patriarch of the Chaldean Catholic Church. There's obviously priests in the Syriac Orthodox Church who identify as Assyrian. There are people in the Syriac Orthodox Church who identify as Assyrian. They have nothing to do with any sort of pagan worship. So to try and attribute Assyrian nationalism to paganism is actually ridiculous and frankly slander. So I personally would not opt for that. Not that this is a discussion of ethnicity. It's not. I said it changed from Aramean to mean Syriac Rite Christian. So yes, it means Christian. On what basis did it change to mean that? So like obviously etymologically, the word Suraya comes from Asuraya. I've demonstrated this on a different episode. You can watch it if you can, if you want to do that.
Is he saying Suraya means Aramean? And if he's saying that, are Chaldeans Aramean?
Well, I don't even think he's saying that. I think he's saying that it's okay for Suraya to mean Christian. He's saying that Suraya does mean Christian.
Yeah,
but it means Christian because it's
he's saying.
I think he would be an Arameanist.
Oh no, he said above that he's Chaldean.
Oh, he's Chaldean.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
very nice, Philip. Very nice.
Are you saying Chaldeans are Aramean?
I believe they are all Syriac Rite Christians. Okay, well, Syriac Rite is again a liturgical rite. So people in India are Syriac Rite, but that's not an ethnicity.
So if you're Suraya and you speak Surath, what are you? That's your my ethnicity is Suraya. Not my religion is Suraya. My ethnicity is Suraya. I speak Surath, my language, not my religion. My language is Surath. So what does that word mean? Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, we can't get. We're not even talking about this stuff, but and then for
this is not even what I've.
Yeah.
We actually really have nothing to do with this specifically on this topic. I'll get back to the topic at hand.
Yeah, please.
Philip, if I ask, can you please refrain from the ethnic discussion? I'm purely having a discussion of the ecclesiastical history of the Church of the East in the modern era. So, Suraya is not an ethnicity. Okay.
You're wrong about that.
Yeah, that's just.
You're wrong about that, and you should learn how to read and write before you develop your opinions, so you can understand the language in order to know what the words mean. How are you telling us what words mean in our own language if you don't know how to read and write the language? That's like illiterate people in English trying to give a vocabulary class.
Yeah. Let's look what Marsar Hajjamo has to say here. So I'll translate. He said, this is something that is not understood. Let me see what he said after that. People that are understood, learn it. So when they use the term Chaldean, when they said the term Chaldean to refer to themselves, they did not mean that, and he is very emphasizes this. They did not mean that they were the people of Babylon. No.
لها وتوقع بهلية كلن أنا قمايا تخشون بابواتي لك فهمي وتي وخابت الكيف وبلقش لك يا ذي النوايدي العطورايا ليه ولو بابواتك فهمي كود أمريكا الدايا دختي وخابت الكيف لك يا ذي عيلة نين وقامة لك يا ذي دليل برون بابل.
So he basically says here, to make it very interesting summary, he says that our forefathers, You don't think they understood that if they were in Talkepe or Alkosh, that they were right next to Nineveh? You don't think they understood that they were Assyrian? He says this very clearly. This is very, very, very obvious in 1996, what Marsad Hajjamo is saying, and this is in a time of unity. But I will bring this up. You start to see a change in the Assyrian Church of the East, and in the Chaldean Catholic Church, where unity is no longer becomes a priority between the two institutions. This has to do with certain perceptions of clergy regarding that whole process. And Marsad had notably changes on this. He flip-flops on his position. I personally think that it's not like Marsad had learned anything between 1996 and 2001 about identity. I think that's very silly. I mean, Marsad Hajjamo had been serving as a priest for over 20 years and was already very learned in 1996, and was, in fact, probably one of the most educated priests. That's why he as a priest, is appointed to this ecumenical dialogue council. But, I think he was very upset about how this process went on. And how certain things didn't exactly go the way that he had envisioned between unity of the church. Maybe he was upset with people in the Assyrian Church of the East, and he goes on to later say things like this.
The Chaldean language. The Chaldean language. The Chaldean language.
So, I mean, this is obviously such a very different thing to be saying. I mean, it's almost a complete 180, if anything. There's so many other statements of his that he's made in the past 20 years. God rest his soul. He recently passed. Very educated man. We'll talk about his importance to the Chaldean Catholic Church later, but it's almost, like I said, it's a complete 180. How interesting is that, Daniel?
Yeah.
Baba Wathan Fahmi. Our fathers understood, but I guess. It changed what they understood and what they didn't, apparently.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. So, stormy weather. Let's just say we're going to go into some public information, some controversies that happen. Mar Abram Khamis is transferred to the Western United States. He is the bishop in Chicago, Illinois. Mar Bawai Soro is moved to Northern California. So there's two dioceses that are created now. In 1998, Mar Abram Khamis goes back to Chicago for a visit. He still has an apartment there. He still actually somewhat resides there. And he begins an illicit relationship with a non-Assyrian woman. He gets blackmailed for $58,500, possibly more, but it is $58,500 at the very minimum. It is removed from his personal account. But there's some questions in regards to, is there some church finances in this? Actually, Mar Bawai was not exposed in this period, Z. That comes to be a little bit later. So actually making this connection is simply not when it happens. You don't actually see Mar Bawai get defrocked from the Church of the East until 2007. So actually what Mar Abram Khamis did happened first. So the woman in 2000, we start to get details of what happened in 2000 as there starts to be a federal case against her. She's actually indicted on 10 federal charges in 2000 in Chicago, Illinois, related to extortion. But she's indicted, in absentia. She didn't show up. So she's actually, if you try to look for prison records of her, she didn't go to prison. She fled the country. So in 2001, as details are leaking out of this, there's a wide expectation that Mar Abram Khamis should be defrocked because of this. There's a highly polarized environment. There are people who say, no, he didn't do this. This is not true. Mar Abram Khamis says he did not do this. And, there's also tribal politics that come into consideration. Marsad Had claims to be, or not Marsad Had, Mar Abram claims to be a member of a certain tribe, and he gets the backing of this tribe, most of them, and they make the claim that if he is removed, we will go to the ancient Church of the East, and he will be a bishop in the ancient Church of the East. Obviously, now there's financial considerations for the Assyrian Church of the East. I have seen some people postulate that, specifically Zinda magazine, postulate that Mar Abram Khamis was aware of a lot of skeletons in the closet for the Assyrian Church of the East in terms of certain controversies that had happened. Obviously, he had been a bishop since 1973. So he was one of the older, more senior bishops of the Synod. So if he was removed, who knows what else he could say about other people, damaging information. So Z, we'll talk about this. I mean, maybe. But the Synod ends up coming to a decision. Drum roll, please. 18-month suspension, Marapram Khamis.
Wow.
Mar Bawai Soro is notable for not voting for this resolution. Mar Meelis Zeya is known as the person who was able to come up with the compromise as the secretary of the Synod during this time period. He comes up with the compromise. He is able to get the necessary votes required. Mar Bawai Soro votes against it. I have heard that Mar Sargis notably did not vote for this resolution. What would be the term? He abstained. That's what they say. So there is a shifting power within the Synod. Dialogue with the Chaldean Catholic Church ceases. The Chaldean Catholic Church also begins to shift positions. Mar Amanu Deli is elected in 2003. Mar Rafael Bidawid, may he rest in blessed memory, in thrice blessed memory, passes, and Amanu Deli is elected. Obviously, the Iraq War is happening in this time. This is a time of great, great, great need for our people. May I not stress the importance of how key of a time for our people this was. And Amanu Deli goes on the record and says, anyone who calls himself a Syrian in my church should leave, essentially, he says, which is very interesting compared to what his predecessor said. Sarhad Jamo in 2002 was elevated to the episcopate. He becomes the bishop for the St. Peter Eparchy, which is newly created as a diocese. He works very hard to build this diocese. And he even brings over some people from Michigan, including Father Andrew Younan, who we will talk a little bit about later. In terms of opposition to unity, what causes it to cease? For Sayyidina Bawai to leave. Yes, Mark, we will get into that. I think 100% this is a big grievance for him, but I think it's in the backdrop of all of his efforts of the past 10 years, or even since 1984, all of his efforts for dialogue with Rome essentially being halted is a big part of it. It shows the shifting power. Mar Bawai being imagine you spend all this time and everything kind of gets stopped, and it goes to show that Mar Bawai is no longer the most powerful person in terms of having the ear of the patriarch. It is now Mar Meelis. Mar Meelis is notable for pushing we need to halt these discussions, we're moving a little too fast, we need to slow down. They're gonna make us, there's this whole saying, if we become with Rome, if we enter with Rome, we're going to be Chaldean. We're going to lose our Assyrianness. It's a lot of fear-mongering going on at this time. In the Chaldean Catholic Church, you have people like Bishop Ibrahim, who say, no, our church is, the way it is good. We do not need to unify with these people. We don't want the ire of the Iraqi government if we do this. We need to slow down. And he's pushing with this inside the Chaldean Catholic Church. So let's say, why is Bishop Ibrahim very important in this regard? Well, Bishop Ibrahim has gone on the record and said he was never in favor of unity to begin with. He said this in several interviews. What does Ibrahim do as well during this time period? He is in charge of the most wealthy diocese of the Chaldean Catholic Church, so he's kind of able to dictate finances and all different kinds of things. Sorry, 1 second. I was looking at something. So let's talk about Mar Bawai Soro's revolt. So Mar Bawai decides to start registering property in his diocese under his name. So this becomes a little bit of a point of contention. When did he start doing this? I believe after the Marapim Khamis decision of the 2001 Synod. Again, this is my opinion. I believe he personally started to do this as a way to be able to have almost, let's call it a suicide vest. If he's removed from the church, he's going to take property with him. He publicly begins to disobey the patriarch in this period, and he starts holding rallies, citing the Marapim issue as being a big problem. He has supporters in Northern California and in Chicago and in Sydney, Australia, widespread supporters who believe Mar Bawai is actually on. He's actually on the right of. He's really on the right side of history here, is what people are saying during this time period. The ACOE and Mar Bawai battle it out in court. The legal structure of the church is at issue here. So, as I've heard, the legal structure of the church at this time kind of left it as dioceses were very separate legally, and there needed to be a more formal, how do I say this, connection between them and the mother church. That is not really exactly what's happening. So Mar Bawai does have a strong legal case. People are funding his legal case from his supporters. His supporters, they ask him, Qassi, what are you going to do? Qassi, what are you going to do? Are you going to join the Catholic Church? And he is notable for saying, no, I will not join the Catholic Church. How can I leave the church of my ancestors? Obviously, this does not end up being the case. Whether or not he was sincere in saying this is another discussion. In 2007, he is formally deposed and defrocked. This leaves another.
He was defrocked.
He was defrocked.
Wow, that's a big
Yes.
deal.
Big deal, right?
And what was the official charge of his deposition? Do you know?
I believe it was disobeying the patriarch, and then there was certain. I'm not sure the exact name of it, but it has to do with disobedience to the patriarch, as Mar Meelis cites in court.
Okay.
So not any heresy. He doesn't cite them on heresy or any sort of those kinds of charges. So, his back is kind of against the wall. The momentum for his support is gradually being lost. He loses the court case. So what ends up happening, he joins the Chaldean Catholic Church at the invitation of his friend Mar Sarhad Jamo. They accept him. Mar Ahmad Nawal Delhi accepts him. The papacy accepts him, and he is accepted as a bishop in the Chaldean Catholic Rite. St. Mary's, a Syrian Chaldean Catholic Church in San Jose, remains a stronghold of his followers to this day. Many of them are people who followed him into the Catholic Church, and they are still proud to say that they believe they were on the right side of history in this regard. He is appointed Bishop of Foranzia, but basically he's the auxiliary bishop of the St. Peter Eparchy. It's a titular bishopric, so there's no, Foranzia was a place that existed in North Africa. It doesn't actually have a bishop, but it's just an honor bestowed upon Dr. Mar Bawai in this case.
So Mar Bawai is back here now?
No, we'll get to what ends up happening. No, but during this time period, he is appointed as Mar Sarhad's assistant.
Right.
So let's talk about the battle for the Chaldean liturgy, something that obviously is of great importance to the modern church today. So Mar Sarhad Jamo, I see I misspelled it, I didn't put another M. He has a great task assigned to him when he is just a bishop by Mar Rafael Bedawid. He is tasked with, Mark, we're going to get to that. Don't worry, Mark. That question, we're going to get to it. He is tasked with reforming the liturgy and reforming it in the sense of bringing it back to tradition. After the 1960s, the Chaldean Catholic Church is very open for allowing reform to return to tradition. They actually encourage the Eastern churches to return to tradition. So Sarhad Jamo is tasked with how can we have an authentic, reformed liturgy, and traditionalist at that. So he spends a great part of the 90s and the 2000s working on this. Obviously, he's made a bishop in 2002. And in 2006, he finishes his reform package. He has approval from the Synod. He takes it to Rome. And in Rome, what happens? Or approval from the Patriarch? Rome approves it. Rome says this should be adopted. We give you the stamp of approval. What ends up happening, though? Ibrahim says he will not adopt this. Why does he not want to adopt this? Several considerations, but one being is that he believed that this would eventually bring them closer to the Assyrian Church of the East once again. And he believes, the Chaldean Rite needs to be separate and, it has its own identity under Rome and it should be persistent under that. So it's not being accepted. I mean, this is a very, very big deal for it not to be accepted. And, obviously the most wealthy diocese in the church is not accepting it. So other bishops follow suit in not universally adopting it. The only diocese that adopts it is San Diego, Mar Sarhad's diocese.
So
So
for
Yeah.
the others to not accept it, do they not accept it on religious grounds, liturgical grounds, or just politics?
I personally would say just politics. Obviously, there are bishops who we would say that are pro-Latin. They don't adopt it universally, so they obviously wouldn't be in favor of that. But it's more like, yeah, I think it's just political considerations. I think if Ibrahim adopts it, I think you see it very, very differently.
I see.
But so basically, this leaves
And
the Chaldean.
his reason would be Latinization.
Why Ibrahim doesn't adopt it?
Yeah, like he's pro-Latin, you're saying?
Pro-Latin, anti-ACOE.
Got it.
So why, again, you brought up a very good point. Why is the whole church not adopting it? So we have to remember that the Chaldean Catholic Church during this period, the liturgy was kind of done. Each diocese would kind of do it for themselves. So by not universally adopting it, it kind of just left it open. Some dioceses had traditionalist leaning, others didn't. So it just kind of left the mess that this reform was meant to solve. It kind of left it in place, which basically solved nothing. So this leads into our good friend, the current Chaldean Patriarch, Mar Luis Rafael Sacco. Okay, he's in the top right. You can see him wearing his little patriarchal outfit there. When he is campaigning for the patriarchate, Amanul Dali is getting very old. He was a candidate for the 1989 patriarchate. He wins it in 2003. He's quite old by this time in 2013. He campaigns within the Synod saying, I will solve this problem. I will unify the liturgy. Okay, I will do it. Don't worry. I have good relations with Rome. So in 2013, he's elected. In 2014, he issues a missal. For those who don't know what a missal is essentially an order from the patriarch top down. It's done without consulting the Synod. It's basically like executive orders for the U.S. president. So it means should this really be the law? It's kind of like a temporary law, but he makes his own liturgical reform package. So Mar Sarhad, who had spent the good part of over a decade working on this reform package, doing research, looking into the authenticity of it, looking into the Syriac tradition with the Assyrian Church of the East, with the Syriac Orthodox Church. He consulted all of these when making his reform package, and that doesn't get accepted. But Sacco does it by himself, no consultation of any of these things. He just promulgates it via missal and forces everyone to accept it. Mar Sarhad is very loud and vocal of his opposition. He's forced to resign after a political battle with the patriarch. The diocese ignites in flames. They appoint a temporary administrator bishop in this time period. So why does it ignite in flames? Priests like Father Andrew Younan, here in the bottom left corner, they write that this reform is inauthentic, that it is wrong, that it should not be done. Him, along with some other clergy members, are very vocal in their opposition. They published articles opposing the patriarch about this. It's a very, very big deal, and the patriarchal administrator is not able to handle it. So what ends up happening? Andrew Younan, you're suspended. We'll call this the very first sin done towards this diocese. What ends up happening as well? Mar Bawai, as auxiliary bishop, is still there, despite the resignation of Mar Sarhad. Mar Bawai is not willing to resign. San Diego is quite an important diocese of the church. Mar Sarhad had spent the better part of the last 8 years making it a hub for traditionalism, an area where the traditionalists will feel welcome in the church, because he himself is a traditionalist, Mar Sarhad. He himself believes in the East Syriac liturgy being as pure as possible. He even writes to Rome. He even has confirmation from Rome that Rome says that he should not use the filioque when in the Chaldean Mass. That the Chaldean Mass should not be using the filioque.
So, okay, questions. Firstly, I was there when this was all happening. I remember this in real life. It was a very big deal. I remember the letters. I remember reading the letters. I remember the controversy, everything. I didn't know that their reform of the liturgy, um, like I don't know there. I didn't know there was a second reform. Like I just thought there was the 2006. I think it was 2006, right? Marcel.
Well, no. The 2006 Maslahat reform was the one that introduced traditional aspects.
Yes. So I knew
should be
about
universal.
that,
Yes.
and I didn't know there was another one to reverse it. I thought it was reversed without a reform. It was just a reform.
So yeah, all it did was it was a second reform via missal. I'll talk about when it gets officially adopted later on.
Okay.
But it's just a missal, so it's really just like a temporary order. Father Andrew Younan, is very vocal about his opposition. Let's talk about some things that changed in the liturgy. Compare 2006 to 2014 missal. So obviously, the issue of ad orientem. Marsahad's reform would have made it universal that all the Chaldean Catholic churches would conduct their mass ad orientem, facing the east, as is done traditionally in all the apostolic churches, pre-Vatican II. What else does he do? Father Andrew Younan also...
one second, Pierre. Blunts, I want you to listen. Pierre's going over the differences. So Marcel had wanted to switch it back to the old way, to the original way, like what we do. The priest faces east. His back is to the people in the Raza. They bring back the cassocks. Sorry, Pierre, if I'm stealing your thunder. The cassock, the curtain in the mass. The priests have beards again. They're not in like pantsuits and clean shaven. Even the colors, the white, the Roman color, the white stopped showing because of the beards and the cassocks. And they even eventually brought the headgear back. All of that stuff was happening. It was awesome.
Yeah, so it was, again, very awesome. There was a big emphasis on putting prayers in the right places, make sure the mass is done as it would have been done in the past. Obviously, with some updates, Marsal had believed that, it could be streamlined, but with keeping the tradition in it. This was something that, his students all firmly believed, including, like I said, his first and foremost disciple, Father Andrew Younan. So what ends up happening, Mar Bawai is transferred to Canada. A friend of Luis Sacco, or an ally of him, Mar Amanul Shalita, is transferred to San Diego, and this sort of it's a forced transfer. Mar Bawai doesn't want to go to Canada. It's why he ends up retiring only a few years after this. Mar Amanul Shalita remains the bishop in place today. Father Andrew Younan is suspended. Eventually, he's unsuspended under a sort of agreement that allows him to serve the Mass ad orientem at a mission parish. It's a long story. I'm not going to zoom into the specifics of this diocese, but understand that the seeds of traditionalism were laid by Mar Sarhad, and they remain prominent today in the St. Peter eparchy. I'm sure Shamash Daniel, you and I, we know many of the priests of that diocese.
I want to just clarify something to Blunts about what we were talking about earlier, and then related to this. So my issue is that a positive reform like Mar Sarhad's was in the right direction was great. It was amazing. And I wish it stayed, and I wish they didn't reverse it. But even Mar Sarhad's reform should have been unnecessary, because they should have never left the tradition in the first place. Go ahead, Pierre.
Correct. No, correct. The whole idea was to restore what was Latinized during the time of the Dominican missionaries, and what was a disorganized liturgy in the Chaldean Catholic Church.
Yeah.
The changing of the guard in the ACOE and Ancient Church of the East. So I agree, Shamiram.
Yeah.
I agree. So His Holiness Martin IV passes away in 2014. The ACOE waits a synod waits a year before electing a new patriarch out of respect. There's also some discussions. Mar Meelis de Baz passed in 2012. He was Mardinka's right-hand man, as I brought up. Mar Meelis assumed the diocese of Mar Meelis de Baz. He was metropolitan of Lebanon. Mar Meelis de Baz. Mar Meelis was in Australia. So, Shamash Daniel, really quickly, how close are Lebanon and Australia to each other?
Closer than New Zealand is to Australia. The opposite side of the world.
Right. So why would the person who's governing the Australian diocese take Lebanon? I personally have a theory on this. That's what's called a power move. It's to show, Mar Meelis de Baz was once the patriarchal deputy. I am now the man of this church. I will add this diocese. I will add this this trophy to my case. He says, essentially. That's how I view it. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. Anyways, Mar Adde, our good friend here in the top right corner, you can see he's aged very much since the last time we showed a picture of him. He has his own controversy in regards to a female. I'm not going to go exactly into what happened, but understand that very inappropriate things were said and done.
The phone call.
The phone call. We'll leave it at that. But 4 of his bishops call on him to resign. They said, resign now. They form an anti-patriarchal faction. What does he do? He's like Oprah. You're defrocked, and you're defrocked, and you're defrocked. Okay? So, Mar Toma Aramia, Mar Zea Khoshaba, Mar Timoteo Shalita, and Mar Mari Emmanuel. Mar Mari Emmanuel, someone brought up Christ the Good Shepherd Church earlier. This is where its origin begins, actually, in this.
So the Christ the Good Shepherd, what was referred to here, is the Coptic Church in Long Beach.
Oh. Okay, well, I completely misunderstood. I thought he really enjoyed the liturgy of Mar Mari Emmanuel. I was like, well, if that made you cry, I'm like, that's nice. So, yeah, Mar Mari Emmanuel suspended at this point or removed. So at this time, Mar Luis Sacco makes an offer to the Assyrian Church of the East Synod in 2014. He says, let's unify. You guys come under Rome, and then I'll resign, and then our joint synod will elect a new patriarch. And he makes it seem like he's making this out of, the bottom place of his heart. This needs to be done. He knows it's not going to happen. He knows they're going to say no. It's to make the Assyrian Church of the East look bad.
Yeah.
Mar Awa Royal, who is the patriarchal secretary at this point, now that Mar Meelis is now metropolitan, he authors a response on the behalf of the synod. Mar Meelis studied in Rome, or not Mar Meelis, Mar Awa studied in Rome. Mar Awa studied in Rome. Here's a very interesting fact I learned. Mar Sarhad was his doctoral thesis director until the Mar Bawe thing happened.
Wow.
And then they told him, you need to leave. So some people say, Mar Sarhad had a little bit of influence in Mar Awa, in a good way, in a positive way.
Yeah.
So Mar Awa Royal authors a great response checking Mar Luis Sacco. You've read it. I've read it. At some point, maybe I'll publish it on my Twitter. We'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Yeah, we'll see.
He explains in the Mar Awa explains in the letter exactly what I'm trying to say in the comments about why it waters us down and dilutes us to go under the authority of Nukhrai.
Yes. So in 2015, Margi Wargis Sliwa is elected. He was Bishop of Baghdad. I like to call him the caretaker patriarch. The sense was that Mar Awa should have been patriarch in this time, but he was young. He needed some more seasoning, some more politics, a more grasping of politics in the church before he takes the big reign. So Margi Wargis Sliwa was elected. During this time, notably, the Patriarchate of the Assyrian Church of the East returns to Iraq. To Arbella, there was a bit of a long project to build a patriarchate that started early in the 2000s. Kind of gets halted because of ISIS, but it it moves. It eventually moves. So, yeah, it returns to Iraq. I'm not going to get into the finances of said patriarchate, but that is another long political consideration. St. Mary's Parish in Northern California sues Maradé II, saying that he should have to resign and that they don't have to listen to him. This is a legal case that ends up happening. There's some testimony about it, conversation about that aforementioned phone call. Maradé, though, now is left with a synod of 3 people. After defrocking these 3, it is him, Mariaco Daniel, and Mar Younan, who is Bishop of Chicago. He ends up ordaining 2 more bishops before the end of his time. He ordains Mar Shimon Daniel, and he ordains Mar Patros Tamras or something like that. He's no longer a bishop, but that's he tries to restore his synod. Yeah,
I have a question. I don't know if you're going to go over this later. If you're going to go over it later, do Mar Mari and Mar Meelis have any kind of interaction or relationship situation?
We'll get to that. I mean, I'm a few years before that happens. There's some reasons cited as to why Mar Mari is removed. Some stuff about his headwear and some other stuff that some people will tell you that this is what Maradé says he removes him. No, Maradé removes him because he is part of the faction that says he should resign.
Yeah.
Okay, that is just absolutely the case. Okay, summary of the past decade. Okay, we're gonna make a quick summary of this. Again, its effects remain to be seen. So we're gonna wrap it up with some of this, and we'll talk a little more. Mar Giwargis the third Sliwa resigns in 2021. Mar Awa Royal is elected to be patriarch. Mar Luis Rafael Sacco starts the Chaldean League political organization. He begins advocating Chaldean separatism, and he involves himself in Iraqi politics. His missal of liturgical reform is approved as full liturgical reform in 2018. People say, why does Rome approve this if Rome doesn't want you to Latinize? I'm going to defend Rome here. When you send this to Rome, Rome is essentially allowing the patriarchs and the Eastern rites to do what they want in a certain regard. Rome just says, you want this? You want this? I mean, if this is what you guys want, they approve it. But it's not like Rome is actively encouraging this, in my opinion.
Yeah, to be fair to Rome, because we've been back from the whole time. To be fair to Rome, Rome doesn't impose Westernization or Latinization on the Eastern Rite Catholics. They do it to themselves.
Right.
I don't know if it has something to do with this inferiority complex. We want to look like the Huare in Rome. We want to act like them, pray like them, dress like them. I don't know if it has something to do with that or not. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that might be a way of describing it. I've personally chosen to describe it that way previously. So you get actually opposition forms in the Chaldean Catholic Church to what Mar Luis is doing. He's essentially ruling almost as a dictator, if you guys haven't really gotten that yet. The opposition forms from several bishops: Mar Polis of Alqush, Mar Amel of Australia, Mar Sirop of Europe, Mar Azad of Dohuk, and most importantly, the Metropolitan Bishop Mar Bashar Warda of Erbil. Mar Bashar Warda of Erbil is someone that had garnered a lot of power in Erbil, collaborating with both the Kurdish government and the Iraqi federal government, along with working with the wider Catholic diaspora to help support refugees from ISIS. And he builds a bit of a kingdom for himself in Ankawa, where he has quite a bit of power and influence, and he's really keen on keeping the political balance that he has struck. So when Mar Luis starts getting more involved in Iraqi politics, it's really messing up what Bishop Bashar Warda is doing. So very annoying. Mar Polis Alqush, Mar Aman are notably arch-traditionalists. They believe in tradition. Mar Polis Thabit of Alqush sadly passed away this past year in 2025. His loss is great, and he will be missed in the Chaldean Catholic Church. Obviously, is one of the notable opposition members. Mar Azad of Dohuk is just tied to Bashar Warda, so his opposition is based on that. Notably, in the October Synod, which I have a picture of in the next slide, these 5 bishops do not attend. It's a really big deal. They boycott it on purpose. And Mar Luis Rafael Sacco throws a massive fit. He says, no, these people, I'm going to have Rome remove them, all this. None of that happens. But
so 5
what
bishops.
does 5? But then 1 dies, so now 4.
Okay.
And so, you know, when Thabit passes away, Sacco goes to Thabit's funeral and he says, you know, Thabit, or not Thabit, he goes and says at the funeral, he says, I will preside over this. He says, you know, basically something along the lines of, we should start doing mass in Kurdish. And he says this in Al-Qosh, where there is no Kurdish presence. You know, it is a pure Chaldean Catholic village. And he goes and says this. And there's, you know, obviously quite a bit of uproar about this. And, you know, there's even one of the, yes, we're going to get to Sa'ad Sirop. Don't worry. This is where I'm getting to, Mark. What ends up happening is one of the priests in Al-Qosh who was crying, you know, sobbing, very close to Marpolis Thabit. He cried at the funeral. He goes and he reports Mar Luis Sacco to Rome. He says, your dad is going to hear about this. But he does it quietly, him and some other priests in Al-Qosh. And, you know, I said, man, you know, I'd be very surprised if this didn't happen. You know, I'm like, why would they stand for this? And I forgot to even mention the statement. So one thing that's really important about understanding Luis Sacco is ChaldeanPatriarchate.com, where he kind of posts whatever he wants there. And it's very weird. It's like his Twitter. Yeah, like I said, I mean, he literally outed the election of 1989 recently. What else does he do during this time? When he writes about the passing of Polis Thabit, he said, you know, Mar Polis Thabit, you know, the bishop was very old-fashioned in his thinking. He didn't understand why we did what we did, you know, about like reform. So, and he said that Al-Qosh has returned to the loving arms of the patriarchy, as if it was in schism. You know, it's frankly ridiculous and disrespectful thing to say.
He is talking like that, exactly.
Yeah, it is. It is exactly what he's talking like. I mean, even the Kurdish comment was made for.
That's like there's historical precedent for that terminology after a schism heals.
Of course.
Yeah.
So when you say this, you know, people who love Mar Polis Thabit, and let me say why Mar Polis Thabit, beloved. Mar Polis Thabit, as a priest, remained in the Nineveh Plains during ISIS. He was with the militia members when they liberated several villages of the MPU. Okay, he is a man truly. When I met him, I met Mar Polis Thabit in Iran.
Yeah.
His first concern was his people. Okay, his flock.
Yeah.
So really, God bless him. Okay,
Amen.
and may he rest in blessed memory.
Yeah.
So again, he gets reported, or Mar Luis Sacco gets reported. There's this weird report that comes out on A and B Sat, which I know is not the most reliable source, but they report that, you know, the Vatican's going to investigate him. Okay, I said, you know, that's funny. You know, maybe that happened. I don't know. I'm like, maybe he did get reported. You know, maybe it is true. And he all but confirms it when he releases on the patriarchal website, you know, the Vatican is not coming to investigate me. They're just coming to visit, I swear. But whoever authored this is going to get in big trouble. And I'm going to find out who it is. And he finds out which priest did it. And that priest is forced to write this very bizarre, like, apology letter where he says he didn't do it, but he's forced to apologize, and where he's like affirming loyalty to the patriarch as if the patriarch is some king. It's a very bizarre letter.
Yeah.
And Bishop Sa'ad Sirop Hanna of Europe writes on Facebook publicly that how bizarre this is and how weird this is and why the church is basically a dictatorship and all this. And the patriarch releases on the website that Sa'ad Sirop is getting replaced as Patriarchal Vicar of Europe, and that he's going to be replaced by the Bishop of Basra. And Sa'ad Sirop then releases a counter statement saying, no, actually, you don't replace me. You don't get the right to replace me because I already resigned. I submitted a letter to the papacy several months ago that I'm going to resign. I went above your head. I'm resigning. You can't fire me. And Sa'ad Sirop Hanna is still a bishop to this day. He still writes things on Facebook. And I recommend that everyone go check out his Facebook to watch him respectfully respectfully criticize the patriarch in the most respectful way possible. Respectfully obliterates the patriarch. Let's say that. Okay, so ISIS, as I brought up a little bit, substantially changes the demographics of Iraq. Countless displaced persons, martyrs of the church during this time for the Syriac Orthodox, Syriac Catholic, Syrian Church of the East, Chaldean Catholic Church. All of them suffer during this time greatly, and it is truly something to be lamented. In 2018, there's a sacramental life agreement signed by Mar Meelis. Notably, not Margi Wargis signs this, Mar Meelis. I wonder, why is the bishop signing this agreement on behalf of the church, not the patriarch? Very weird, right? Don't you think that's weird? Anyways.
What is your theory for that?
I just think that the caretaker patriarch in this period, really, Mar Meelis was the big man on campus making decisions. That's my personal thought.
Yeah.
Anyways, and this is no respect to Margi Wargis, no disrespect to Margi Wargis Sliwa. He's a very, very kind man who really stayed in Iraq during difficult times. I just believe that unfortunately he was not really meant to make any significant decisions on his own at this point.
Got it.
So also, when we're going to talk about, since this was referenced and you asked about it, Mar Meelis, our good friend Mar Emmanuel, let's all submit to Christ the Good Shepherd Church of Wakely, the true seat of the apostles.
Yeah.
He starts his own church, Mar Emmanuel. It's something that nobody agrees with, and everyone in Australia has essentially whether you're Maronite, Chaldean Catholic, Syriac Orthodox, nobody wants to talk to him in Australia because they know what he's doing is wrong. Mar Meelis releases like a really long video essentially criticizing him, calling him Robert Schliemann, really just laying into him. Whether or not he should have done this is a separate conversation, but he makes the choice to do this. Personally, I think you shouldn't be attacking one of your own at this point, but he does that. Okay, Mar Adde at this time also, he brings back Marzeya Khoshaba into his synod. Mar Toma Eramia is shortly brought back before Mar Adde passes. Mar Adde sadly passes in 2022. Margi Wargis Younan is elected as a patriarch of the Ancient Church of the East, but not before there is a negotiation with the ACLE in 2023. And in this negotiation, it looks like unity is about to be achieved, but it's not. And I could bring up why, but it'll simply just be hearsay. But I'll just say that certain people who have been referenced earlier, who have been on the record of calling the Ancient Church of the East adherents primitive, may or may not have torpedoed this effort towards unity with what we might call as wholly unacceptable terms to the Ancient Church of the East, and frankly disrespectful terms. But let's talk about Margi Wargis Younan,
the 2018 intercommunion agreement.
Sacramental life agreement.
Yeah, it's an intercommunion agreement, right?
No, that's a different one.
Oh, it's different. What's the sacramental life is not a like exchange of sacraments?
It's just more like that they're like the sacraments are the sacraments are all like valid, and that there's it's just like
it happened before.
I'm not really sure
it happened before the intercommunion agreement or after?
After. This is way after, like 16 years after.
Yeah, okay.
It's a common statement on you know what it is? It's a common statement on sacramental life. So it's saying like basically they both just talked about how important the sacraments are, and that there's some agreement on how important these sacraments are and shared sacraments. But it's nothing that significantly changes anything. But it's just interesting that he signs it.
So if it's after, I know you're pointing it out for different reasons, but if it's after, why is it necessary? Because I'm gonna come back to your point, but why is it necessary if it's already known, since there is an intercommunion agreement? If there's an intercommunion agreement, that means everybody already agrees on whatever this is.
But the intercommunion agreement, the common pastoral agreement, is only for the Chaldean Catholic Church and the Syrian Church of the East. It's not for the rest of the Catholic Church.
Oh, you're saying this is for the whole?
Yeah, but this doesn't allow the like full. It's not.
Okay.
It's a statement. I should have rephrased it. Not an agreement, but it's a statement.
Would you say that when did Mar Awa become patriarch?
2021.
Okay, so Margi Vargas is patriarch during this time.
Correct.
You think Mar Meelis signing this supports your theory of this power, this like how his reach to Lebanon, his kind of power trip that you're implying? I think that's
Yes.
a part of it. There's no other reason.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I think it's just part of that, to be honest.
Okay.
So what were the conditions Mar Meelis wanted for the ACOE? Mark asks, if you want to put that question up. For the ancient church, what did he want? Well, one of them was that, and I can't be, listen, I can't, there's nothing that says that he specifically did it. This is me just saying this. He wanted that every member of the ancient church of the East, person who's a dargaya, which means you have darghe, which is like ordination, sort of. Any person who is has to be re-examined by the Assyrian Church of the East. So it's basically like the Assyrian Church of the East would be absorbing the ancient Church of the East, not them unifying. So it'd be like, oh, we get to pick and choose who we want from the ancient Church of the East, which is so funny. I mean, it's like how much more could you spit in their face? That's like the one big one. Mar Shimon Daniel talks about this in an interview he has afterwards. He was present for the interview. There was some other stuff. I'm not going to get into that, but that's a really big stickler point. Marmari is offered readmission into the ancient Church of the East during Margi Vargas Yonan's patriarchate. In fact, just as early as last year. And he chooses not to. They actually gave him a really nice package. They're like, we'll recognize all your ordinations. You can rejoin the Synod. But all you need to do is just submit to the Patriarch and stop using the term Theotokos as often as you do. Because basically it's not in the tradition of the Church of the East.
This is Shoab Yarcha or no?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. What about the new calendarists? They don't give him the same deal?
Who? The new calendar? No. Mar Meelis is he's that Robert Schlimon, as he calls him, is persona non grata for Mar Meelis. Just to tell you, interesting fact, I will bring that you can look this up. Margi Vargas, in his most recent visit to Australia, was not visited by any ACOE clergy, let alone invited to the bishopric of the ACOE when he was in Australia. There was literally no discussion with Mar Meelis the entire time he was there, let alone any ACOE clergy. I wonder why that is. I wonder if there's someone who doesn't like the ancient Church of the East. So here's some pictures. Let's just go over some people. Let's introduce some faces. Top left, Margi Vargas Yonan, the patriarch of the ancient Church of the East. Next to him is Mar Meelis Zeya, a more modern picture of him. On the right is that notable synod in 2024 that those 5 bishops did not attend. Here you have bishops of the Chaldean Catholic Church in it. You can see Louis Sacco in the middle. You can see Mar Bawai actually attended, funny enough, as a bishop emeritus. There's several bishop emeritus that are attending. Here's a nice picture of the synod. Mar Awa Royal, bottom left, looking a lot of aura in that chair.
Yeah.
Next to him, Bashar Warda, Metropolitan, His Grace. On the right, you have the Synod of the Assyrian Church of the East. This was taken, I think, early last year. So some of these people are retired.
Mar Meelis is sitting right on his right. First guy.
Well, he's Metropolitan. But the prelates from India do not attend the Synod, by the way.
So is everyone in the picture on the Synod, even the Kasha?
The Kasha is the Arkandiakon. That's actually my priest. Fun fact. He is the secretary for the Synod.
Okay.
So he succeeded Mar Awa as secretary for the Synod.
Got it. So the Synod is what, 13?
Well, no, because there's 2 bishops who are not in attendance here.
Okay.
Not that
so 15. Pierre, your connection. Your, Pierre, your connection went bad again. Yeah, it's okay now.
Hello?
Yeah.
So the guy all the way on the right, sitting next to the guy with the grayish beard,
Mm-hmm.
that's Marapim Khamis. He is now retired.
Okay. Got it. So 14.
So I believe so.
Got it. And you know how many the Chaldean Synod is?
Well, I'm not sure who's retired in this picture and who's not.
This amount plus 5 or something?
Well, then one dies.
Okay.
Right. So one dies, and
Right.
then one does not have a seat, and then several people in this picture are retired. Several people are retired in this picture. So I think it's probably like a similar amount.
You know, I think so too. It's interesting because the Syriac Orthodox Synod is bigger than the Chaldean Synod. I didn't expect that.
Yeah.
I think the way they stood here is that they put the tallest bishops out first at the ends of the picture, and then they went tallest to shortest.
Yeah. I think that does have some some truth to it.
Right.
Yeah. Anyways, I think this concludes my my summary of the ecclesiastical history of the Church of the East.
Beautiful.
Over how many years did we cover here? 1770 to 2025. So, yeah, three parts.
Okay.
Open for questions.
Why does Mar Meelis hate Marmari?
Ancient Church of the East. He really likes to use the name Assyrian in regards to his church, and Mar Meelis is actually the official government sanctioned religious representative for Assyrians in Australia. So he's like, no, you can't use this name. I'll sue you if you use this name. Mar Meelis really likes suing people too. He sued a guy for 1.5 million in Australia.
Yeah.
For defaming him. There are more things I could say about Mar Meelis, but I don't want to be sued. So.
Got it. Wow. Okay. Let's see. Guys, please put your questions in the comments. What is your expectation, realistic expectation, regarding any potential unity between the Assyrian Church of the East and the Ancient Church of the East within 20 years?
So Pierre Younan has gone on the record and said, if we unify, I will resign as patriarch.
Okay.
So that's a really big step to say, I accept that, I can be less than what I am. So that's very good of him. Mariaco Daniel, who's on the Synod of the Ancient Church of the East, has also said that unity is the number one priority. He recently read a statement about this on Facebook. So they want to unify. They want it.
You're you would say that the Ancient Church of the East is 100% on board with unifying.
Correct.
Okay.
As long as the terms are not idiotic.
Yeah. Okay.
That is 100% my opinion.
And
I believe in the next 20 years, the odds are very good.
Oh, wow. Beautiful. That's very happy to hear that. I was happy to hear it leading up to Marawa's appointment. I was very happy that he was appointed, and I thought unity is just around the corner with them. And I think it's a lot more eminent with us too. After the in-house stuff gets squashed with the ancient church and stuff, I think we're up next for that. Inshallah.
Mark asked what's happening with the Church of the East in Canada. Marawa has been coming very often. There currently is no bishop in Canada as of Mar Amanul Yusuf's resignation. He retired, or not resignation, he retired from the bishopric. Yes, correct, Martin. That is exactly the way to say it. But he's a civilized person, so he doesn't need unity. He's civilized. He's civilized, so he doesn't need unity. That's beyond him because he's so civilized. Just really want to go over this.
Well, I thank them very much, but I am not coward. I am civilized.
Well, then have a civilized
I am not coward. I am civilized. Very civilized individual. Anyways, in Australia, there's a very powerful, strong diocese there. There's a seminary there, and several bishops are product of this seminary. So, yeah. So Manawa visits there just because there's there's no bishop there, so they need to visit. But I'll tell you this, Mar Meelis notably visited Canada first. I wonder why. Is he visiting Canada first before Manawa did when there was no bishop? So fascinating. Yeah, anyways, there's heretic talk going on. People are, I guess, heretics in the chat. I'm a heretic. We're all heretics.
I don't even know how this came up. How did it come up about heretics?
Z, what? Wait, Z. What do you want me to let go? Please tell me. Let what go? What do you want me to let go? Tell me.
You know him?
I don't know who it is.
Oh, okay.
But he wants me to let it go. Let what go? What am I letting go? What? Yes. Let's bury bad things. Let's bury bad things so that we never learn from them. That's a great idea.
Well, okay.
Let's remain primitive.
I agree to an extent. We should bury it if it was squashed. Did the sides reconcile? If it didn't reconcile, then we still have to deal with the problem.
Well, here's the thing. I'm a firm believer. So why do we study history? Shamas, you have a master's in history. I have a degree in history. Why do we study history?
To learn from our mistakes.
To learn from our mistakes. So if we just say, no, don't talk about it. Let's move on. Let's not talk about it ever. Are we ever going to learn as a community? No, we're not. We're not going to learn. Oh, I'm acting primitive. Oh, yeah. Atheny with primitive. So bimari with tlali. Oh, لا همزة بس دم مديانة بشباي, أنا ناشئت لدرغة, أنا مديانة قامة يلا. That's a primitive mindset. That is being primitive. Okay, that's my new favorite word. You're primitive. Everyone's primitive now. We'll continue to open are the wounds sealed? I don't understand. Like, was there some sort of like sewing here? What's the word? Not sewing.
That's what I'm trying to say. Like, if we should let it go, we should bury it if it has been buried, but it hasn't because they're still divided. There's no communication. So we have to still deal with the problem until it's been reconciled, which I'm nobody. I'm not even close to the holiness of Mar Meelis, not even 1%. But like my humble and small brain would say, my small brain would say humbly that I think Maran would encourage us to approach the other one, even if we feel like we were wronged, to go to the other side to seek reconciliation. Then as Church of the East members and believing that this is the body of Christ, the Holy Church, to heal the body of Christ instead of leaving it broken.
So Shamiram, I said that. I said he has built a kingdom, but there's other considerations of morality, I think. And
exactly, Z.
Yeah.
I think we're all in agreement. I think everybody on all sides is in agreement on what should be happening. It's sad.
I just think to heal these things, you have to be honest.
When I talk about the Church of the East, when I reference the Church of the East, I never, until recently, like very recently, because I'm seeing it's like people really recognize this, but for all these years, I've never once differentiated Assyrian or ancient. I just say the Church of the East. To me, it's still one. I refuse to recognize that it's broken.
None of us are perfect, but I prefer to hold our episcopates to higher standards.
Mm-hmm.
So because that's the standard they take upon themselves.
Fair. Yeah, that's fair of you. That's fair.
So that's the standard they take upon themselves when they take the darta of being a bishop. So if I want to hold them to that higher standard, I think we all should, to be honest. And anyone who doesn't want to hold them to a higher standard is just simply in denial. I want to see it heal too. But if I want to see this heal, there has to be honest discussions, and on both churches, including the Chaldean Catholic Church. And how many members are estimately part of the ECUE, including the ones in India? 500,000, maybe more. Call that an estimate. So we all agree. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna call it a night.
Okay. Thank you, Pierre.
Thank you, guys.
I appreciate it.
I hope.
Guys, like, subscribe, share. Pierre, anything you want to say?
No. Thanks for having me on, Shamas, as usual. Pleasure talking to you guys.
Okay.
Until the next time.
Take care, everybody. I don't know how to get the thing back. Let me see. Hold on. Okay. Well, I'm trying to find the outro, and I'm this restream. It's like a new thing for me, but I guess we'll just end it without it. It's fine. Take care, everybody.